I'm extremely pleased to welcome you all this afternoon to the first ever English drama competition conducted by Colombo YMBA. Actually, this is a long felt dream come true. All this while, for many, many years, I think for the past 30, 40, 50 years, Colombo YMBA has been organizing Sinhala drama competitions based on Jataka stories. But this is the first time, Venerable Sirs, that Colombo YMBA has come forward to start or conduct an English drama competition. The reason behind the English drama competition is the Colombo YMBA is dedicated to promote English education in this country. Last year only, we took the decision to have an English drama competition. And we took another decision this year. That decision is, we generally have Sinhala literary activities competition. That's, we have Gadya Padya, then we have Sinhala oratory competitions, and then we have art competitions. This year, we took a decision that henceforth, all these competitions will have two parts, Sinhala part and English part. Because when we have an English competition here, it's only the English-speaking children who will come and perform on the stage. Sinhala-speaking children from rural Sri Lanka will not come here due to lack of English proficiency. So we thought we should give them also a chance to master the language. And one way of doing that through the Colombo YMBA is to split these Sinhala competitions also into two and ask them to perform one section in Sinhala and another section in English. So that's a very conscious decision we have taken to promote English education. Because I believe, if we trace the history of Colombo YMBA, many of you may know, Venerable Sirs, Colombo YMBA was started in 1898, not only for propagation of Buddhism in this country, but also to work for gaining independence from the British Empire. In fact, I was having a conversation with the Deputy High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka last week, and I told him, in 1915 only Mahatma Gandhi set foot in India to work for India's independence. 17 years before, Sri Lanka started her independence movement. That was in 1898, and this was the platform. So, Colombo YMBA's platform has never been for agitation. It has never been for agitation, and it will never be. But Colombo YMBA stood by Sri Lanka when Sri Lanka needed institutional calm, moral clarity, ethical leadership, good governance, and most importantly, youth empowerment. And that is exactly what we are doing today. Empowering our youth. Empowering our youth to be compassionate leaders of this country, cultured leaders of this country, and also ethical leaders of this country. That is what we need to do. Because this country lacks compassionate, ethical, and cultured leaders. Today, we have a situation in Sri Lanka where leaders from platforms make divisive speeches with hateful thoughts that divide societies, that will spread hatred among communities. That we need to stop. Our leaders should be able to make conciliatory and compassionate speeches that will bring people together, achieve social cohesion. Then only Sri Lanka can prosper as a prosperous country, a developed country. Because developing Sri Lanka also has been a long, long dream, very distant dream for Sri Lanka or Sri Lankans. Because I did my A-levels in 1985, I did economics, and we used to learn. Then Sri Lanka was a developing country. More than 40 years have passed, but today also we are calling Sri Lanka a developing country. So when can we achieve this development? We need to ask ourselves. Because as parents also have a responsibility to not only think about the children, their education, their future, but parents also have a duty to think about this country. Thinking about this country is not limited to standing and singing our national anthem. Thinking about this country, Reverend Sirs, is not limited to standing and singing patriotic songs. That is not thinking about the country. But we need to work for the welfare of this country. Give our youth, our children, a better place to live. Because even after 70 odd years of independence, Sri Lanka faces many of the same challenges she faced decades ago. We face many of the same challenges. Challenges are the same. Only one or two challenges we have overcome as a country. But we have many challenges ahead of us. When are we going to overcome these challenges? To overcome these challenges, we need to build good leaders that we have neglected to do over the years. In fact, I would request the young performers, children here, to go home and speak to their parents and tell the parents that the parents also need to think about the country. Without thinking about the country, we will not create a suitable environment for these children to live peacefully. That is a dream of the Colombo YMBA. And this is a platform that produced 5 heads of state of Sri Lanka. This is a platform that produced many lawmakers in Sri Lanka. But even through that effort, we have not been able to put the country on the right track. So we have a great responsibility to discharge. What we are trying to do is not only to improve their linguistic and performing skills, but we also try to build cultured, ethical and compassionate leaders. Now that also needs education. Education is also very, very important part of this whole exercise. Today, the Colombo YMBA, I am happy to say, Venerable Sirs and Mr. Gunatilaga, we are spending over 100 million rupees every year to support education in this country, run government schools, give scholarships to children, and give English education to Venerable Buddhist monks. Actually, I am very sad to say, Reverend Sirs, we have an English class every Sunday at 2:30, a physical class taking place in the adjoining building, and generally about 90 Buddhist monks take part in the English class. But I am sad to say only 3 Buddhist monks are from Sri Lanka. 87 Buddhist monks are from Myanmar, Thailand, China, India and Cambodia. So we have very little interest even among our Buddhist monks to learn English as a language. But that is something we need to promote, because we need to equip our Buddhist monks, monastic community also with proper English skills, because that is the weapon we have to deal with the rest of the world. So when we talk about education, today we have a great debate before us about education, educational reforms. For many decades, we have put barriers for educational reforms. We oppose every educational reform in this country. We drove people to roads to do protests against education. But we are today talking about educational reforms. Now, educational reforms are important. Educational reforms are important for these children, because a child who is in grade 1 today, in 2026, the child who enters grade 1 class will do A-levels in 2038. Advanced level, that child will sit for in 2038. If he or she gets selected to the university, he or she, that student will stay 1 year at home awaiting university entrance and go to the university in 2039 or 40 and come out of the university in 2044. But is our education system equipped to produce a child who will be ready to face the world in 2044? Do we know what the world would be in 2044? When we talk about educational reforms, are these educational reforms aimed to produce a child who can face the world in 2044? To do that, we need to have people who can visualize the world in 2044, 2045, 2050. Educational reforms should be at the right place. Venerable Sirs, now educational reforms, today we are talking about whether history and religion should be taught together or taught separately. Whether sex education should be given to children from grade 6 onwards. Whether history should be taught in schools at all. And then whether the school should finish at 1:30 or 2 o'clock. These are the educational reforms we are talking about. The main focus is these areas. But we need to ask, as parents, why economically strong parents in Colombo and other wealthy rural areas choose to send their children to international schools? Is it because the parents study the school curriculum and they become dissatisfied with the school curriculum and that's why they put their children to international schools? Why the government schools don't have children in the A-level class? Is it because the content is not suitable for the A-level class? No, because the parents know that there is no deliverability. What is in the textbook is not delivered to the children. That is why the children are not going to A-level classes in public schools. But private schools, there are children in A-level classes. These children, after sitting for A-levels here, advanced level, they go overseas for studies. Maybe they go to Cambridge, they go to Oxford, they go to China, they go to India, they go to Europe, they go to American universities. Do they give up their education and come back because our education system has not produced good results? No, they somehow take the degree and come back. More than the content reform is necessary. But more than the content reform, we should see whether we can deliver what is in the textbook. Deliverability is the question we have not addressed. We don't have proper teachers. We have no system to recruit proper teachers, train proper teachers. I think we have about 100 teacher training schools in this country. About good 20 to 30 of them don't have proper facilities. We don't have proper teaching techniques to teach children. So there are a lot of gaps in our education system. So Professor, actually we need to reform the roots of education first before we go to the curriculum. That is something we have completely neglected. That is why there is this conflict between the society and the educational authorities about the proper education reforms we need. That is why even the Buddhist monks, our monastic community, has taken to streets opposing English education, not because the content is wrong, but the way we are approaching the reform is wrong. So these are things we need to address our mind to. And the Colombo YMBA will come forward, is always there to speak about these defects in the system and try and get them corrected. So as I said, our effort is not to agitate from this platform, but to do advocacy for proper economic reforms. And also we are advocating proper, rightful speech, conciliatory speech, far-thinking speech, Venerable Sirs, because that is what this country needs. Because after 30 years of war, still the wounds are wet and we are not doing anything much to heal these wounds. So Colombo YMBA can be a strong platform to bring all these people together, different communities, achieve social cohesion and take the country forward. And we will always look for that. In fact, a little while ago, Venerable Sirs were advising me as to what the Colombo YMBA should do, what our role should be. So I don't wish to speak at length, but I would urge the parents here and also the children to think about what I told you and see what you can do, contribute to put the country on the proper track. Because our people elected a government with lot of hope, expecting a lot of changes. But we should try to get this change implemented. That's what we need to do. In a few days, we will be celebrating independence. Once again, we need to ask whether we are really enjoying independence. Especially when there are lots of challenges to the majority of Sri Lanka's population, that is Buddhist. Because there are lots of challenges faced by Buddhists today, and we need to face these challenges, and we need to drive some sense into our communities. But unfortunately, Venerable Sirs, there are some Buddhist monks also who are not properly behaving, not appropriately behaving. So I think the monastic community also has a responsibility to bring them together and set an example to the rest of the country that together we can make a meaningful change and make Sri Lanka a prosperous country. Because economic prosperity is a main pillar of Buddhism. And sometimes we tend to misunderstand that Buddhism tolerates poverty in society. But Buddhism does not tolerate poverty. Poverty is against Buddhism. And also, one mistake we made back in the days, especially when we named our country even, when we called our country Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka, we need to ask ourselves whether Buddhism is a socialist religion. But Buddhism always supports private enterprise, creation of wealth by the private sector. That is what the Buddha taught. So these basic Buddhist teachings we should grasp and take to the society, and we should tell the world, we should try and tell the world that Buddhism did not fail Sri Lanka. Sometimes the foreign countries, rest of the world tend to think Buddhism failed Sri Lanka. Because of Buddhism, Sri Lanka cannot be developed. But the truth is the reverse. Sri Lanka failed Buddhism. Sri Lanka is a country that failed Buddhism. Sri Lanka is a country that violated Buddhist principles. Sri Lanka is a country that abused Buddhist principles for different other gains. So we have a lot of things to do as Buddhist community, as leaders of society. We should get together and make all efforts to put the country on the right path. So with those words, I wish to conclude, and I wish to congratulate these young performers for coming forward to perform on the stage at this very first English drama competition conducted by the Colombo YMBA. And I wish you all the best. I wish all of you the blessings of the noble triple gem. And more than that, I have a greater wish. May the noble triple gem bless my country, Sri Lanka.
අලුත් වැස්සක් වහිනවා හෙටක සිහිනය දකිනවා